Hey, I'm sitting here in the lab. As promised, the first video that I was going to do is specific to what rifle am I going to be doing or utilizing during this test. So we're going to kind of just go through some of the major components just to give you a kind of a background as to what this build was and the components that I'm using. And honestly, it's something that anybody could really do in their shop. You just got to pick up the components. So I'll give you a little bit of a rundown as to how I went about that. So we'll start with the action and the barrel. So the action, this is a Bergara Premier that is available. I bought it off of Brownells. And this one's chambered in 308 Winchester. It's got a medium palma barrel. It's got a 1 in 10 twist, which is, you know, the spin rate of the projectile coming out of it. So it's 20-inch barrel length. It's got a fluted bolt. It's all stainless steel. So I mean, for the money, it's a pretty good deal, and it's a pretty top quality for a factory setup. So that sits on an Masterpiece Arms MPA BA competition chassis. I've got a couple of these chassis on other guns, and I like them. They fit so the Bergara Action is a Remington 700 footprint. So it'll fit into a Remington chassis or a lot of the stocks without any major modifications. And that's a big deal, because if you're in this business, everything seems to be driven by a lot of the manufacturers. The clones in particular, a lot of the designs came from the Remington 700 as the basis, because that is, you know, as far as the military goes, that rifle in particular has always been the standard bearer. So what some of these other manufacturers like Bergara and some of the other, maybe what they do is maybe change some of the tolerances, change some of the design to improve it. So if you got online and we're looking at some various Remington 700 actions, there's a lot of options out there, and some of which are pretty darn expensive too. So anyway, so this chassis, it's an all aluminum frame chassis. It's got a magazine well underneath here, so you can fit your 5.10 round magazine. It's got an adjustable cheek rest here, so that helps you with your eye relief and position. It's got an adjustable shoulder rest in the back. It's got they call it the EVG. It's a vertical grip. I like that for precision, because I can rest my thumb on this pad. I don't have to grip it down here. I can kind of grab it, and it's really you don't have to grab it super hard. And then the trigger, and this one, just because it's an economical build, this is it's one that I had from another gun that I'd replaced with a little bit better one, but this one is a Triggertech field trigger. So it's set at 2.5 pounds. Of course the gun is empty, but so it has an integral level. So let's go to the optic. This optic I chose, which is a Bushnell, or I'm sorry, it's a Vortex. This one is. I use a lot of Bushnells, but this one is a Vortex. It's called a Strike Eagle, and it's 5 by 25 power, so minimum 5, maximum 25. It's got a 56 millimeter objective, so that's what this is, the fat part out here. And what that does is allow you to have a bigger field of view. And then the tube, which is the center part here, is 34 millimeters, which gives you more adjustment, vertical adjustment. So it's, for the money, it's a pretty good deal. This one happens to be an MOA. It's first focal plane. I usually use mill reticles, MRAD, but this one, I think for what we're doing here, is going to serve the purpose, and a lot of people understand and are familiar with the MOA type of scope. So what else do we have? I've got Vortex rings on here also. The bipod that you'll see a lot is an Atlas bipod. So it's kind of a little bit of a maybe a nicer one, but of course it's adjustable. You can adjust it, tilt back, forward, um, to get it in the position you want. It has an adjustable cant knob, so you can adjust your cant side to side lever, and that helps you firm up and get your position, get your scope level. And then lastly, I'll be running a SilencerCo Omega 300 suppressor. That ought to make listening to the videos a little bit more enjoyable also. And so the kicker with that thing is, though, so my brakes that I use are Area 419 Hellfire brakes. And so what they do is they actually utilize an adapter that I can thread onto the end of the barrel. This is an Area 419 component, and they also make an adapter for the suppressor, for this particular suppressor. I think they do for several other ones, but what that does is allow me to thread one on and off, and also if I'd like to put on the brake. So do a quick change out without having to make any major modifications and pull a wrench out or do anything special. So that's it. So that's pretty much the gun overview. And of course it's a 308 Winchester. And I think here what I'm going to do next is show you just what the cartridge is and compare it to a few options, just so you have that. So you kind of have an idea as to, if you're not familiar, what the actual 308 Winchester cartridge looks like in comparison to some other popular cartridges. So stay tuned for that.
Okay, everybody, we're going to start off here talking about our 308 Winchester cartridge that we're using for our project. And I think the first thing that we should do is discuss or demonstrate the SAMI specification and point out what that is. So basically it's the Sporting Arms and Ammunition Manufacturers Institute. And what that does is set a standard in conjunction with um, obviously manufacturers of ammunition, and it was started by the government at the government's request, so we can have a standardization for specific cartridges that applies across all manufacturers. So obviously many manufacturers manufacture a 308 Winchester cartridge, and there are tons of variables that can be done. Mine that I'm going to eventually be building are hand loads that I'll make myself, taking the different components and putting them together. In this case, just want to point out the dimensional specifications that are pointed out by SAMI. So any 308 Winchester that is chambered in that cartridge, per the specification, that they'll all, at least initially, so any factory round should be right around this spec. I mean, I think there's a tad bit of variables depending on which bullet you're using, because some bullets are longer and have a longer ogive or ogive to tip length, and so they can get away with a little bit more. But generally you're limited by the chamber free bore in your rifle anyway. So and in cartridge and magazine length. So what you can fit in a magazine. So anyway, so there's that. So we'll speak on that some, and kind of just to give you a brief overview of what the actual specification is that we're going to be working with, and then to kind of give you a comparison of some of the variables within cartridges that I'll use. You can see 308 Winchester is highlighted there, third from the left. But on my videos, I'll be using, my other drone videos and maybe others in the future. These give you a point of references to some of the cartridges that I'm actually using and how they compare to other ones. So 300 PRC is a pretty long one. It's just to give you a point of reference. I think I'm loading them around 3.785 maybe inches long is what fits in my chamber. So generally speaking, the 308 Winchester is going to be around the 2.8 inches length, overall length. So give or take. I'll get specific on the one I'm actually doing for this rifle as part of the project. But as a general rule, as you saw on the last slide, it is 2.8 inches. So there's some pretty popular cartridges. You'll see references to 6.5 Creedmoor, 6 Creedmoor. The 6 GT is a new cartridge that was designed by a rifle manufacturer, and so that's what happens a lot of times. So 6.5 PRC, 300 PRC, those were designed by Hornady, and it seems to me like so far they're pretty much exclusive on those. Although more will be coming out, and if I'm not mistaken, I think they were highly involved in the Creedmoor rounds too. So, anyway, that's kind of where we're at. So we're gonna go next. We will be going out to the range to do a break-in on this rifle. So looking forward to that, and looking forward to continuing the process of going down the path to trying to take this Bergara Premier 308 Winchester out to 1,000 yards. That's the goal. Don't know if I'll be able to hit 1,000, but that's the goal. So I feel pretty confident we'll get close. But anyway, thanks for joining me, and we'll catch you on the flip side.